Hello everyone, this is Chidanand from Kratz Infotech NG and welcome to this short tutorial on Kubernetes. In this tutorial, I will be demonstrating how simple it is to bring up a Kubernetes installation on an Ubuntu box using a tool called Kubeadm. While there are a lot of tools which allow you to bring up Kubernetes, many of them are tied to the cloud on which you bring up Kubernetes. Kubespray is one of them, Kops is other one. Kubeadm is a standalone kind of a tool which I really like because for my use case is that I'm going to bring it up on a plain Ubuntu box, not relating to any cloud on which it is running. So this is a plain vanilla Kubernetes installation on an Ubuntu box. For my lab setup, I will be using an Ubuntu box which I brought up on my Google Cloud platform. But nonetheless, the steps that I'll be following would be the same for any other box that you want to bring up your Kubernetes cluster on, as long as it's got a public IP address or an IP address that is reachable from within your data center. And of course, there are a bunch of ports that needs to be opened on the boxes. The instruction that I'll be following today will all be put up on my GitHub repository, and these are the ports that has to be opened on this box. Alright, so unless these ports are open, your Kubernetes cluster or the Kubernetes setup would not be complete. So I've opened up all these ports on my Ubuntu box, and this box is on my Google Cloud and I have an IP address to it. So I've connected this to my Ubuntu box, and let me check the version. MSB release-a. This is the Ubuntu box. It's got 18.04 version of Ubuntu, and let me see if I can show you the configuration of the box. Yeah, it's a EC2 medium, 2 virtual CPUs and 4 GB memory. Not a very powerful box, but then this is sufficient enough for me to bring up my Kubernetes cluster. Alright, so that's the box. So on this box, I need to do certain steps before I go ahead and start installing Kubernetes. First and foremost is, the swap memory should be turned off. Okay, without this, Kubernetes cluster would not work. Sudo free -m. Okay, the swap is off, just verifying it. Alright, after that, let me install Docker. I've already done a sudo get update, but nonetheless, let me do that again. Right. So let me go ahead and install Docker. This is the Docker CE edition that I'm going to install. So sudo apt install docker.io. So Docker is getting installed. Once Docker is installed, let me go ahead and enable Docker. Come on. Okay. Usually doesn't take that much of a time, but nonetheless, it is done. So let me go and enable Docker, and then let me start Docker. Sudo systemctl start Docker. Alright, and status Docker. So this is just to check that if my Docker is up and running. Great, it looks like it's up and running. Alright, now begins my Kubernetes instructions. So first and foremost, let me get the GPG keys for installing Kubeadm. Alright, and then I will add the repository specific to my Ubuntu version. right, sudo apt get update. Oops. All right, great. Now let me go ahead and install Kubernetes or the Kubeadm specific version. I mean, you can go ahead and just specify anything without any version, but for me, I would need to install a specific version, which is v1.18 of Kubeadm. So sudo apt install Kubeadm, kubelet, and kubectl. Now please notice that these three are different tool sets, and there is some sort of dependency mapping on what works with which version. For me, this all the three versions, Kubeadm, kubelet, and kubectl being 1.18 works for me. If you have any other specific requirements as to what version of kubectl that you want, what kubectl server and what kubectl client version that you want, the steps would all be pretty different. But for me, I'm keeping it pretty simple. I want all of these are all recommended versions, that is compatible versions. So I've gone ahead and installed that. And also, I don't want any more updates to keep happening or prompting me for updates. So I'm going to just run this hold so that it doesn't prompt me for updates. Okay, now let me just check what is the Kubeadm version that is installed. Yeah, I got the right version of Kubeadm that I've installed. Mandatory, not really mandatory, but let me set up a particular name for my master node. Now, this name is just a name so that it shows up in my cluster. So sudo host name ctl set -host name. I am setting it as master -node. Great. Till now, I've just installed a Kubeadm. I've not really initialized anything, nor have I set up anything. All right. Now comes the tricky part. How to go ahead and initialize your Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to use this Kubeadm command, and Kubeadm command has got a lot of flags in it. If you want a specific version of the, if you want to specify the version of your or the IP address of your master server, you'll have to specify that. If at all you want to give a pod network where in case you want to have an overlay, not in case, most of the times you would want an overlay address, and for this you'll have to specify a required CIDR address. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify just the pod network CIDR, and this is nothing but kind of overlay network that would be set up for me, and all my Kubernetes cluster would be running on this particular CIDR network. So let me go ahead and hit that command, sudo kubeadm init pod network. If at all I want, I can specify some verbose levels in case something goes bad, but let me just try this first and see if this runs into some issues. All right, this may take a while, so I'm going to pause the video and get back once the installation is done, or if in case this hits upon some issues. Looks like my installation went through perfectly well. So if we just browse on top of it, come back, you'll see it. There are a lot of things. There's a little bit of a warning, but that's fine. Developers always ignore warnings, so nothing to worry about. So it's gone ahead and it's created a lot of key sets, checking some health. Kubelet, looks like everything is looking good. In case you run up on some issues, maybe because of network or any of that stuff, you can always do a Kubeadm reset and go ahead and delete the installation and then do a fresh initialization again. For me, it looks like everything has gone well, and what I want to do is there is a little bit of instruction as to how to connect any other nodes to my particular cluster. So I'm going to copy this, and it's got an IP address, it's got a token, and it's got some hash code in it. Now this is what any other node will have to use in case they would like to connect to my particular Kubernetes cluster. For now, it's just a single node cluster where I have my master running. All right, just before I get started, I would need to, I'm always running all this with the sudo command. So in case I would need to run this with my my user credentials, I would need to copy these configuration files. Okay, now all the configurations is all copied. My single node Kubernetes cluster is up and running, and just set an alias k equal to kubectl for me to run some kubectl commands. K get node. All right. So if at all you do a k get node, you would find that the master node, the status is not ready, but it checks and tells me what is the version that it is running on. The reason why this fellow is not ready is it doesn't still have a network provider, a CNI plugin that has to be installed before before my cluster is up and ready for communication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install something called as Flannel. There are various CNI plugins that is available. Flannel is a pretty popular plugin, so I'm going to use this command to install the Flannel CNI plugin. All right, so what has done is it created some cluster roles, some config maps, some service accounts, and it starts up a daemon set. Now we'll have to wait till all this may take some time for it to get up and running. So let me just verify if all the pods and all the namespaces. So there you go. This core DNS etcd is running. This fellow is still waiting for something. Flannel is up and running. Kubeflannel, kubeproxy is running. Everything looks like I'm just going to wait on this fellow before doing anything else. So let me check it again. Okay, now it looks like all the pods are running. All right, now let me check my kubectl get pod. Oops, sorry. Now this k get nodes. All right, there you see. Now with the CNI being installed, my particular cluster, the conduit for him to do communication is all set. So my master is up and ready to accept connections. Now I have my master which is up and running. I just want to verify by connecting another node to it. So the one on which Kubeadm was initialized and I have a control plane that is running is my K8s master. I have brought up one other node, and this is the IP address of that particular node. So on this machine, I pretty much did all the same steps, swap off, installed Docker, started Docker, installed Kubeadm, and pretty much all these things up till here. All right, now let me set a different name for my worker node. So this is my master, and this, if you see there, and this is the IP address are different. This is 3468, and this is a different IP address. So let me go ahead and set a different name for my master. So I'm going to call this guy as worker-1. Worker is not a good name. I'll say node-1. Okay, Kubernetes node-1. After I set the name, what I probably want for my node to do is get connected to the master plane. So the command this is the output that I had got from my previous run on the master. So I'm going to paste it here. Kubeadm join. Oops, I think one thing is missing, that I need to add a sudo. So let me do that. Where's that? Home sudo. All right, so I'm going to prefix this with a sudo thing and then run this on my node. That's my worker. Okay, now this clearly tells me that this node has joined the particular cluster. Okay, now let me just check the status of my node. Looks like everything is set for me. I have my both nodes which are connected to each other. I have a master or the control plane running. I also have a worker node that is connected. Okay, now what I'll do is I will try to verify this. Sorry, one other thing is I also have the CNI plugin that is installed, so they are ready to communicate with each other. Let me quickly verify if I can, bring up a pod on this and see if everything runs well. Okay, run busybox, name of my pod, hyphen image is equal to busybox. I'll run something in this sh-c sleep for 1 day. All right, okay, get po. All right, that was fast. So okay, describe po. All right, so it successfully pulled that image and assigned the default to K8 node 1. As such, the master node would have some sort of taints on it, or saying that it doesn't want to run anything. That is the reason why any particular workload that you try to run, unless and until it can tolerate that, all that gets delegated to your particular node, the other nodes that are around. So your pod is up and running successfully. Bringing up a Kubernetes cluster using Kubeadm was as simple as that. I hope you found this tutorial informative, and thanks a lot for stopping by and watching my video. As usual, all the commands that I use for my tutorial would be put up on my GitHub repository, which I'll be sharing. And in case you run into any issues, kindly leave a message and I'll try to address it as soon as I can.